Welcome to the caves beneath the wild hills. Now, last time we looked at 10 GM move examples for social encounters in Daggerheart. This week we're venturing deep underground to explore how GM moves can bring exploration scenes to life. Just like before, I'll move a little faster than you might at your table, but the goal is to show the rhythm of GM moves and how they create tension and narrative flow. Our story begins with Matilda, a human wizard, Dell, a giant druid, and Dufay, a Dracona bard. The trio have been tracking the Jagged Knife Bandits, a ruthless band of thieves said to be hiding in a network of caverns beneath the wild hills. Rumour says they've stolen something ancient, known simply as the Breath of the Earth, a crystal that hums softly when danger is near. The three adventurers pass through the cave mouth, its jagged opening like a yawning wound in the hillside. The air is cooler within, carrying a faint, rhythmic whoosh, the sound of the cavern's slow, heavy breath. Matilda peers into the dark. If they're hiding in there, they've picked a charming spot. Dell stoops, sniffing the damp air. Smells old. Like something that remembers being deeper. Dufay grins. And you wanted to come here? You're both insane. Now, the GM wants to introduce a mechanic within these caves. No one in the party has failed an action roll or rolled with fear, so if the GM wants to make a move, he must spend a fear to do so. And the GM does that. Example move number 1. Show signs of impending trouble. The GM tells the party that they feel a mild tremor and a few pieces of small rock break away from the ceiling and rain down upon the players' heads. This is not painful, but hardly pleasant, and the GM asks them all to mark as stress. Dufay swallows. I hate when the architecture threatens to kill me. Then walk softer. The GM also says that the cave feels unstable, alive almost, and starts a D6 countdown die, quietly setting it to 6. What he keeps from the players is that the die will tick down each time one of them rolls with fear, and when the die reaches 0, the cavern will start to collapse entirely. Hopefully, they will catch on before that happens. They continue inward. As they move deeper, the path narrows, twisting through sharp limestone teeth and patches of glowing fungus. At one bend, Dufay gets a sudden surge of paranoia, like players do at most tables, and asks the GM if they can hear anything. The GM asks him to make an instinct roll and sets the DC at an average of 15. Dufay gets a failure with hope. The GM tells Dufay that he can hear nothing but the sound of his own boots echoing through the tunnels. Now Dufay rolled a failure, so the GM makes a move, and a move with hope should be a soft move. Example move number 2, switch to a different sense. Now Dufay might not be able to hear anything, but the darkness is stirring his other senses, and the GM tells him that a sudden smell wafts into his nasal passage. It's the stench of rotting meat. Something has died down here, says the bard. I can smell it. More likely your cologne, snorts Matilda. Dufay ignores the comment. The group continues pressing forward quietly, heading into a broad tunnel, and after some cautious manoeuvring, the group descends into the lower level of the cavern. The air grows warmer and smells faintly of minerals and moss. Here the path becomes thin, with a nasty drop into complete darkness on one side. The GM explains that the drop could be 20 feet, it could be 1,000 feet. They have no way of knowing. As the party are huddled together, arm in arm, the GM asks them to make a group agility roll to see if they make it past this dangerous stretch of path safely. If one of us falls, we all fall, mutters Matilda. Dell is in front, so becomes the leader for the roll. In total, the group gets a success with fear. The GM describes how to make it along the narrow path safely, but because the roll was with fear, the GM makes a move. Example move number 3, change the environment. The GM describes how just as Dufay steps back into the safety of the main tunnel, part of the treacherous path that they've just traversed collapses, sealing off the way they came. Winnie turns to Dufay. "You big lump, you just closed our escape route." Dufay shrugs. "Now we can't get lost." The GM ticks the countdown die to 5. The passage splits into 2 tunnels, one to the left, smooth and narrow, and another to the right, jagged and descending sharply. Dell kneels, inspecting the floor, and makes an instinct roll to try to determine which path looks safest. It's another success with fear. Example move number 4. Complicate the success. Dell identifies the right-hand path as the safer option, but in doing so, he steps on a loose rock in the floor. The cave lets out a long, low groan. Then part of the floor gives way completely, falling with a crash to somewhere below. A hole 10 feet in diameter, and who knows how deep, blocks their path. The GM ticks the countdown die to 4. Dell found the correct path, but now the group have a new challenge. They must cross safely. Dufay offers to leap across and makes an agility roll, getting a success with hope this time. He grins at the others like a Cheshire cat as he throws them a rope, and soon they're all safely on the other side. The party follows the tunnel for a little way before it opens into a massive chamber. Here there are makeshift bedrolls and empty bottles on the floor, signs of recent activity. Matilda looks around carefully, trying to work out if the bandits are close. She crouches by a fire pit and feels for warmth. The GM asks her to make an instinct roll to see what she learns. He sets the DC at 12. Matilda gets a failure with hope. Example move number 5. Show an unseen adversary. The GM tells Matilda that she can tell nothing from the fire pit, but also describes how they hear the faint cough from someone unseen from deeper within the cave network. Dell slowly raises his staff. "Not alone then," he whispers. Dufay points to a pathway leading in a different direction, and they follow it. The group continues, but the path narrows in this direction. Soon they are squeezing through a narrow rock crevice. The stone presses close on all sides. Dell can barely fit at all, and the GM asks him to make a strength roll to push himself through. Dell rolls and gets a failure with fear. A failure means that Dell is stuck, but this is a failure with fear, so the GM makes it worse. Example move number 6. Separate the party. The GM describes how Dell tries to push himself forward, but his leg becomes wedged between the narrow rocks. As he pushes again, his own force causes a section of the wall to break away completely, and then an avalanche of rock and dirt erupts before him. When the dust settles, Dell has become separated from the group. Still trapped, he calls for his friend's aid. "Help! Help!" The others can hear him, but not reach him. The GM ticks the countdown die to 3. Dufay looks to Matilda. She shrugs. Slowly they turn, leaving Dell for now, and continuing down the tunnel. Soon his muffled cries fade out entirely. They don't have to walk far before they see a light ahead. Creeping quietly, they see that it is a pair of jagged knife bandits sitting beside a small fire pit and grumbling. Dufay wants to hear what they are saying and inches a little closer. The GM asks him to make a finesse roll to see if he manages to conceal himself from the bandits. He rolls a success with fear. Example move number 7. Advance the threat elsewhere. First, the GM ticks the countdown die down to 2, describing how another shower of rocks comes down from the ceiling. Then the GM explains that Dufay hears the bandits clearly. "Boss says we move for loot soon. The crystal's making the rocks breathe again. This place will collapse if we're not careful." But while Dufay is listening, the GM describes how Dell, still struggling to get out of the tunnel, sees torchlight approaching from behind. Then he hears voices. "Could have sworn I heard something from down here a minute ago. Split up, look around." Dell freezes. The GM throws him a bone and tells him that his foot is no longer trapped, but advises Dell to act fast. Del scurries back to the previous chamber as fast as he dares, just in time to duck behind a stalactite seconds before a team of jagged knife lackeys arrive to investigate. As the bandits circle around the area, Del asks the GM if he can spot an opportunity to roll to the other opening without being seen. The GM asks him to make an agility roll, setting the DC quite high at 20. Del spends a hope to use his catch me if you can experience. He rolls and gets another success, but with fear. Example move number 8. Trigger a severe environmental effect. The GM describes how there's another rumble in the ceiling. The lackeys all crane their heads upward, and Del, with the grace of a cat, dives for the nearby tunnel. But the cave shakes with anger, and huge rocks fall from the ceiling. 2 of the lackeys are instantly killed by boulders the size of wagon wheels. The GM tells Del that he's also hit as he lands, and must mark 1 hit point. Del cares not. He scrambles down the tunnel as quickly as he can. And the GM ticks the countdown die to 1. Meanwhile, the 2 bandits near the fire are on their feet and panicking. One makes for the tunnel ahead.
"Where are you going?"
shouts his friend.
"To get the crystal. This place is gonna collapse any minute. Boss'll be mighty miffed if we leave it behind."
"Are you mad? You'll die if you waste more time in there. Screw the boss. Let's go."
"Fine,"
shouts the first bandit, and they change direction and run the other way, right into the direction of Matilda and Dufay. The GM asks them to make a group finesse roll to see if they're seen. This time, they get a failure, but with hope. The bandits spot them, and despite their fear of the cave collapsing, draw their swords. But let's not forget that they rolled with hope, and here's what the GM does to change the situation. Example move number 9. Reunite the party. The GM describes how, just as the bandits are about to swing their blades, Del comes thundering into the chamber. He sees his friends and the bandits, and the GM asks him what he wants to do. Del wastes little time conjuring a swarm of fireflies. He rolls and gets a critical success. Both of the bumbling bandits die miserably as they're set ablaze by 1,000 winged beasties.
"Come on, we've got to get out."
"The crystal, it is just over there."
"Are you sure?"
"We'll be quick, come on." The group hurries into the next chamber, where they see it. Resting atop a raised stone plinth is a glowing crystal orb, the relic itself, pulsing like a living heart. But before they can approach, a shadow moves. This bandit sports a studded eye patch. It is him, the bandit boss. Without blinking and without thinking, Dufay draws his crossbow, firing. He makes an attack roll and gets a failure with fear. Example move number 10. Trigger the inevitable. The GM slowly and ominously removes the countdown die from the table. He describes how Dufay's bolt flies wide and strikes the wall. Then it rebounds and hits the crystal instead. A brilliant flash fills the cavern, followed by a deep echoing crack. The entire chamber groans as fractures and chunks of rock begin to fall. The ground shakes violently. The bandit boss vanishes beneath a collapsing rock. Then, the whole ceiling above them lets out one almighty groan. Del holds his breath. Matilda screams. Dufay grips her hand. And we'll leave our heroes there, facing their imminent doom and reconsidering their life choices. As we have seen, exploration in Daggerheart is all about coping with pressure, facing the unknown, and seeing how the environment itself responds to the player's actions. It can be extremely dramatic, even with very little combat. If you have your own favourite exploration moves, share them in the comments so we can all learn from each other. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so you don't miss the next video. To sign off, your advice this week is this: the deeper you go, the brighter your courage must shine.